Okay, we are approaching 50 attendees. I think perhaps we can get going.
Смятам, че след като вече имаме близо 50 участници в тази стая, можем да започнем.
Okay, I can hear the interpreter. Am I doing something wrong?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had switched through another option to Bulgarian, so I do not know really. Maybe you shouldn't be in the Bulgarian channel, but in the English channel, if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I'm on the off interpretation.
All right. Well, maybe if you get into the English channel, then you shouldn't be able to hear me.
Okay, let's try this.
Okay, now I should be talking and сега ще говоря и да видим дали можете все още да ме чуете.
I can still hear you.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can hear you.
Well, I'm so sorry. Yes, and I can even hear my own voice echoed again and again and again. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can we get a little bit of help?
Yes, Anka, we are trying to see the problem, but everything, all the settings are fine. So we have the two channels, English, Bulgarian, and off. And since that's
okay. Okay. Valerie, can you speak?
Yes, I should speak now, and okay, I'll keep speaking, and if you would please give me a sign whether you can hear me or not. Hopefully, you don't hear me any longer.
We can still hear you, unfortunately.
All right.
So I think.
Please give me a sign whether you can hear me or not. Hopefully, you don't hear me any longer.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I saw here, Valerie, that you joined as a normal panelist, not as an interpreter.
I didn't have any other option. Maybe you should assign me as an interpreter.
Okay, then disconnect and you will receive another link.
All right, thank you so much. I'm leaving. Have any other option? Maybe you should assign me as an interpreter.
Okay, then disconnect and you will receive another link.
All right, thank you so much. I'm leaving.
Okay, well, everyone will give it another minute for our colleague to reconnect, and then we can start. Thank you so much for the help, Cornel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Just to explain a little bit why we have this, let's say, issue, because the webinar is followed by a group of Bulgarian journalists. They have a capacity building workshop now in Bulgaria, and they are very interested to hear you today. So apologize for this mistake. Okay, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, I still don't have an option. That is the normal buttons. The interface for Bulgarian English is not here. So maybe the channels are still, I don't know, heard both sides. I mean, in Bulgaria, they can hear me, but unfortunately, you can also hear me. Am I assigned as an interpreter now?
Okay, just a second.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. Okay. Can you please try now?
Yes, hello, hello. But no, I don't see the buttons either.
Okay.
Available, right? Well, we had this option available the previous time, you know, and still there was nothing. It is off. I should try it with the Bulgarian channel, even though it is not necessarily. Okay, do you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. The problem is that we can
We are
hear
not
you.
supposed to hear me. Yeah. All right. I should get in touch with the Bulgarian side to see what's happening.
Okay, what I propose, Anka, is just to start the meeting, and we kindly ask our Bulgarian colleagues to find a solution for a local translation, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
I could translate the recording if you don't mind that.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. So we can tick the box of webinar technical issues. I am Anka Toma. I'm the director of the Smoke-Free Partnerships and partnership. Oh wow! And on behalf of my own organization and the organizers of today's session, the European Network for Tobacco and Smoking Prevention, and with the support of the WHO European Regional Office. I welcome all of you today for this session to mark the World No Tobacco Day 2021, to have a discussion on the ability and commitment of governments to quit tobacco, and to recognize and honor the recipients of this year's World No Tobacco Day Award, all of whom are participating today. We're starting with a tiny little bit of delay. We will start with two keynote interventions, followed by a panel debate between experts in various fields who will discuss the commitment of governments to quit tobacco. And we will finish with an award ceremony. So because we've already started a little bit later, I will not delay this any further, and we will start with a recorded welcome speech from Mr. Paul Blokhuis, the State Secretary for Public Health in the Netherlands, who has kindly supported this event.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I can't join you today, yet I'm grateful for the opportunity to say a few words. My name is Paul Blokhuis. I am the State Secretary for Health, Welfare and Sport in the Netherlands. The topic of tobacco control is part of my portfolio and a high priority to me. Today you honor the European recipients of the 2021 World No Tobacco Day Award. I am glad we can acknowledge positive results in tobacco control. Congratulations to the winners. However, I must also confess I wish we wouldn't need awards, since that would mean we were living in a tobacco-free world. A world in which nobody would have to suffer the devastating consequences of tobacco. A world in which we would ask ourselves why we put up with tobacco use for so long, and why we didn't hold the tobacco industry accountable for so much suffering. When I took office 4 years ago, the Netherlands wasn't a front runner. We were doing much better now. I have experienced governments can indeed commit to quit. In my country, our strong civil society paved the way for including the concept of a tobacco-free generation in the new coalition statement. This enabled agreement on a package of measures and actions designed to ensure a tobacco-free generation by 2040. Together with health sector, municipalities, businesses, sports sector and other organizations. The package is part of the National Prevention Agreement signed at the end of 2018. As a result, we could implement various legislative measures in the past year. For example, plain packaging, a tax increase, a display ban at points of sale, a full smoking ban in bars and restaurants, and a smoking ban on all school grounds. In the meantime, our civil partners were able to further push smoking out of daily life. For example, in all 12,000 children daycare centers, also in playgrounds, petting zoos and sport clubs. And the list goes on. This year we are working on limiting points of sale of tobacco products. Banning internet sales will start in 2023. Banning from supermarkets, I think it's quite revolutionary, a year after. Cabinet also decided to ban e-cigarette flavors other than tobacco flavor. Both reducing points of sale and the ban on flavor for e-cigarettes still need to be adopted by Parliament, but I have good hope for success. It was not an easy path. Industry interference is always lurking and their tactics are fierce. Only recently they targeted their Unsmoke campaign, highlighting alternatives in our country as well. Although our enforcement agency is on it, I consider this a real threat in reaching a smoke-free generation in 2040. Children should not be exposed to smoking, and the same goes for any alternative. I am happy with the ambition of the European Cancer Plan aiming for a tobacco-free generation in 2040. I hope more and more countries will join. Together we can create momentum to realize a revised EU Tobacco Product Directive. This will strongly contribute to a tobacco and nicotine-free world. And increasing the minimum level of tax on tobacco in Europe is a common purpose as well. We still have lots to do, so let's stay focused in our joint fight. Thank you, I count on you. Bye.
With many thanks for the Minister and to the team at the Ministry of Health in the Netherlands for facilitating this. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Carina Ferreira Borges, the head of the European Office, the WHO European Office for Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases. And before you take the floor, I would just like to acknowledge the support of other organizations for the event today. And these organizations are the European Cancer Leagues, the European Cancer Patients Coalition, the European Respiratory Society, the European Heart Network, the European Organization for Lifestyle Medicine, the European Public Health Alliance, and the European Federation of for Allergies and Respiratory Airways Diseases. With many thanks to all of you for standing with us for tobacco control for all of these years. And Dr. Ferreira Borges, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this immense privilege, which is to be here with you today and to participate in these discussions with experts from across the region, representing, as you mentioned, a great number of public health communities and civil society organizations. So regardless of our diversities and backgrounds, we are here united for a single purpose, and this is to take on the tobacco and succeed in this relentless withstand. Tobacco epidemic is, as it was mentioned before, one of the biggest public health threats in the world that we have ever faced, killing more than 8 million people per year. The burden of tobacco extends beyond health issues, and it undermines also the social and economic development of nations, with the annual cost of smoking estimated to be around 1.4 trillion US dollars globally. Since 2005, the year when the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control came into force, many achievements have been made. Across the region, the smoke-free public places are now becoming the norm. My children are no longer faced with people smoking around them. Larger pictorial health warnings on tobacco packages are being applied in 2 out of 3 countries in the plain packaging, and plain packaging is gaining more and more momentum. High taxes on tobacco products, the most cost-effective measure to reduce tobacco use, is also being implemented in half of the European countries. While tobacco advertisement and promotion and sponsorship bans are increasingly being applied to novel tobacco products, we see that in addition, 140 million people in our region have now been able to access comprehensive tobacco cessation services. We have to be proud of these achievements and to the milestones that they have collectively, and we have collectively been able to reach. At the same time, as we become more groundbreaking and in tobacco control actions, the industry has also become more inventive in its attempts to delay or disrupt adoption and implementation of effective tobacco control measures. We have seen quite a lot of those attempts in the recent week. Furthermore, the tobacco products landscape is continuously evolving. One big trial we are now all facing is the great variety of novel tobacco products, such as the cigarettes, the nicotine pouches, and heated tobacco products, which are being strategically marketed to children and also to very young people. The picture is also not so encouraging when we look at the overall trends of tobacco use. We know that in our region, we have a slow rate of decline, and this is currently tracking towards an 18% reduction when we were having a desired reduction of about 30%. Not to mention that we have the highest tobacco use rates among women, and we are the only region not expected to reach the global target for this group. So we have, however, to have hope, and I know that there's a lot that is being done. We can see across the region that countries are standing up to innovative and threatening tactics from the industry. And we have been gathered here today, and we are gathered not only to praise some of these leaders and learn from them, but also to reiterate our commitment to make the European region free of tobacco. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I believe that we can do it if we work together for that. We have amazing tools, such as the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Its full implementation is central, as we know, to achieve the SDG-related goals, and more specifically, SDG 3.4, which calls for the reduction of premature mortality from non-communicable diseases by 1/3 in 2030. However, the contribution goes beyond and above this target and extends to achieving other SDGs, including those which are related to the poverty, to hunger, to education, economic development, equality, gender equity, good governance, partnerships, as well as environmental sustainability. My dear colleagues and friends, today we will hear from our experts how governments have across the region committed to quit tobacco and protect their policies from the tobacco industry interference. Indeed, ministries of health cannot take this task alone. And this is a responsibility that should come from the entire government. We will then warmly welcome and celebrate our regional laureates of the prestigious 2021 World No Tobacco Day Award. They are truly a diverse group, as you will see, individuals, institutions coming from different parts of our region, but having one in common game and goal, which is the strong commitment to champion the cause of tobacco-free future for all. So I applaud your dedication, your leadership, your commitment to tobacco control. I would like to end my short intervention by calling all of you to work together, as this is a collective power that brings us to collaborate and use in an intelligent way the tools that we have at our disposal, such as WHO, FCTC. And with that, we can say that we are staying ahead of those who are determined to put profit before health. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Borges. With your intervention, we will now proceed to have a brief, perhaps too brief, but it's the best we could do, panel discussion, which will be moderated by Ramona Brad, the president of the of the Association Healthy Romania 2035, and a previous World No Tobacco Day awardee. And up to you, Ramona, now.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Anka, and we're deeply honored to be able to facilitate today's discussion. I'm really hoping that I will solely serve as an enabler of the discussion among the experts that we currently have on the board of panelists. So without further ado, as we are a little bit late in the agenda and the schedule, I will now initiate this panel discussion, which is going to focus on government's commitment to quit tobacco, focusing specifically on the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought upon all of us. Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a major disruptor in global public health, with a devastating impact on health systems and national economies that have shifted the world's attention to this one health emergency. We now know, all of us, with certainty that smoking and tobacco-caused non-communicable diseases pose a higher risk for worse outcomes with COVID-19. However, governments across the globe have been faced with difficult context challenges like decisional standstills, parliaments in recess, slow or even sometimes reverse government actions in 2020 on tobacco control. In the same time, we all know that some others have used the opportunity represented by the shift of attention on public health. The experience in countries such as United Kingdom, where an unprecedented number of smokers have quit during the pandemic, or Malta, where we've seen strengthening of tobacco control measures, highlights what I would call the tipping point, or the teachable moment that the pandemic offered and still offers to push forward the tobacco control agenda as a strategy to mitigate the adverse health impact of COVID-19. I would like to give the floor to panelists now, to start the discussion by giving us their perspective on the challenges that COVID-19 has brought at EU and at country levels in tobacco control efforts. And I would start by inviting Professor Anna Gilmore, a director of the Tobacco Control Research Group at the University of Bath, to take us through some of the challenges that the governments have been faced with during the COVID-19 context. Professor Gilmore, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. COVID, the tobacco industry has used that as a massive opportunity to influence everything. So it's used it as a brand marketing opportunity to promote both its existing products and its new products. It's used it as a reputation management opportunity. So we see the tobacco industry making donations of ventilators, of masks. And at the same time, sickeningly, really, given that stance, it's opposed the efforts that governments have made to try and control the epidemic. So we've seen it maintain factories open and put cigarette factory workers at risk. We've seen it litigate against governments' attempts to control COVID, for example, in South Africa. And really, I think what's particularly sickening for me is the way that they they step in as the kind of solution, giving these ventilators and so on, when really if industries like tobacco that caused so much health harm had paid their taxes in the first place, if they hadn't been engaging in tax evasion and avoidance, governments would have far more resource to be able to afford the healthcare to support the COVID pandemic.
Thank you so much for this context that you have provided further, Professor Gilmore, on the first topic of the panel debate. I would practically ask the same question and the same kind of inquiry into what the governments have been challenged with specifically during COVID-19 to Mr. Merling, the head of United EU Commission. So kindly asking you to provide your perspective on the challenges, probably specifically at EU level in this context.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to reformulate a little bit the question, because I mean, we all know the challenges. We all know that we were all surprised by the pandemic, and then we worked through border closures, citizens stranded, no medical goods, critical medical goods bans, and so on. Vaccines now, but let me outline a little bit also the opportunities, what we have seen during this pandemic, and it has impacts on tobacco control. One is health is now at the center of policy making, and that at the local, at the regional, at the national, and at the EU level. This is really unprecedented, and the dichotomy between health and growth is gone. It's very clear that health and growth go together. This is a big opportunity. We had a more than 10-fold increase of spending now in health due and driven by the pandemic. We always had our public health program was about 450 million for a 7-year period, and now we go to 5.3 billion, which is really a major shift. We are revising several pieces of legislation. We have a new focus on health systems, resilience of health systems, and we also will have probably within the conference on the future of Europe, a new discussion on how to change the health article. That could happen. It is something that I've already heard at several occasions. Now, together with the pandemic, we've also adopted Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, which was already mentioned by Minister Blockhaus, with an unprecedented ambition, a tobacco-free Europe by 2040. This is something we haven't had at EU level before, and it is due to the high rates of cancer that we have in the EU and the high contribution tobacco control can make to bring down these rates of cancer, because tobacco is the leading cause of preventable cancers. It stands for more than a quarter of all cancers. So being fierce and strong on tobacco control really brings a huge contribution to this cancer action plan. We will start with the most efficient tool to change, which is the tobacco taxation. So that will be the first action, but we've also outlined further actions, and I think I can come back to it a little bit later, because I first want to give the others the floor. But this tobacco-free generation objective will set the pace and the tone and the objective for all the EU member states, and this is revolutionary.
Indeed, thank you so much. We will definitely get back to a bit of more specific details on the EU cancer plan and the actions that you are currently undertaken in that regard. But you have very well set the stage for this discussion with a review of everything that is going on in the field. You've talked about opportunities in the context of COVID-19. I also talked a bit about it because I think we are all proactive people that want to take the best out of the worst situations. And I think this is a very good moment to introduce to you Lilia Olefir, the Executive Director of Life Advocacy Center in Ukraine. because Ukraine is one of the best practice examples in the COVID-19 context of really taking advantage of the opportunity to further advance the tobacco control agenda. So Lilia, some of your thoughts on the context, please feel free.
Thank you, Ramona. Well, indeed, there were a lot of challenges, and one of the challenges that was not yet mentioned is how the industry keeps using the media to manipulate the general public and kind of to shut down the voice of the public health community and of the government that was calling on smokers to quit and informing them about the risks posed by smoking due to COVID. And in this fight, I think it's not easy for the government because, as we know, the tobacco industry uses paid media to spread their message. And of course, if there would be stronger voice from the government, but of course we know how hard it is to counter the paid publications that are directly sponsored by the tobacco industry. And I guess confusing not just smokers, but general public and decision makers with these messages, whether whether smoking protects or increases the chances, is one of the lost opportunities for some countries where it was harder to get that message out and to have it present on TV and print media and online. But despite all of that, in Ukraine, we did manage to increase taxes on the novel products starting from January this year. And so we are one of the few countries that has same excise on heated tobacco products and on cigarettes and other tobacco products. So in this case, our government did make an enormous step forward, although we know how hard was it, and the tobacco industry keeps challenging this tax increase till this day. So we are still fighting and we are still in the process to make sure that the tax increase stays as it is.
Thank you so much, Lilia. We'll get back to you with a bit of more details on the specific progress and the adoption of the first reading of the amendments to the tobacco control law. I would not like to end this first section of our panel discussion without giving the floor for some thoughts to another success story during the COVID-19 context, which is Russia, who managed to raise the excise tax on cigarettes, tobacco products, and e-cigarettes effective Jan 1st, 2021. And I would kindly ask Ms. Daria Khalturina, the head of the Department of Prevention of Risk Factors and Communication Technologies in Healthcare of the Federal Research Institute for Health Organization and Informatics of the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation, to give a bit of perspective on how did you manage to succeed in such a context?
Hello, so I provided presentation. If you have it, please turn the first slide. If not, I can just, okay, second slide then, please. Second, please. So here you see two officials, which both come from a financial part of the government. And after all these years of advocacy from the Ministry of Health, they, to our glad surprise, announced that Russia will raise tobacco and also nicotine products taxes by 20% in 2021, exactly to address the hardship of the COVID pandemics. So first, Mr. Mishutin, the Prime Minister, said that the situation is difficult and everyone should take part in solving the problem. Perhaps he advocated in this way the tax hike to smokers. But secondly, Vice Minister of Finance exactly said, provided another argument that it is proven that the higher is the cost of cigarettes, the lower is tobacco consumption. And this effort is coordinated with the state policy to reduce tobacco consumption. So I think this is a result of many years of advocacy from Ministry of Health and Research Health Society in general. But also, of course, it's very nice to have such dedicated officials. Next slide, please. This is generally dynamics of tax, minimal tax rate. We have mixed tax rate in Russia, and it shows that it was very profitable from the point of view of tobacco revenues. And here we see this very nice tax in 2021, which will be quite changing the dynamics upward. Next slide, please. And just to repeat, the tax was raised not only on tobacco products, but also on nicotine products such as liquids for e-cigarettes. As for, I should add that we also had another great event, is a bill, actually a new law amendment, which extended approaches for tobacco products to nicotine products, and it banned other products like nicotine patches. This is why tax was raised only for these liquids. So thank you. That was our story.
Thank you so much for being able to join us today. I think it was very useful for all of us. We all need success stories to learn from and to further engage and motivate us down the road. I think now I would like to go back to Lilia in Ukraine, whom I want to first congratulate for the adoption of the first reading of the amendments to the tobacco control law. This is a great achievement. I know you've been putting a lot of effort and a lot of work behind this to allow it to happen. Can you please share with us, as it would be really useful and for other people in the group that would like to reapply some of your learnings, what were the tactics used by the tobacco industry to delay the adoption and to weaken the measures included in the tobacco control bill? And second question that I would like you to cover, if you would be so kind, is what would you recommend to other countries that are in the process of revising their tobacco regulatory measures? To one extent or another, I think there are a lot of countries in which we are trying to, for a lot of years, to make this happen. So I think the learnings from you again would be very useful in this regard as well.
Thank you so much, Ramona. Indeed, the process was very long. With this new parliament that we have right now, we started working in 2019, and so the bill was first registered in January 2020, and since then we did undergo several revisions of the law, to be precise 3 or 4. The tobacco industry, as always, was quite creative, and in order to delay the first reading of the bill, they did use their lobbyists in the parliament to initiate the creation of the working group that would discuss the bill, and that working group did consist of the front groups that did belong to the and that do partner with the tobacco industry, but to our we were very happy with the decision of the Health Committee to not take into account the suggestions that were coming from the pro-industry groups. Other interventions from the tobacco industry included registering dozens of alternative bills or other tobacco control bills that kind of suggested similar regulations, but that were much weaker than the comprehensive bill that the policy champions championed. Other tactics included, as I mentioned, using front groups that were very vocal in the media. And in general, the role of media and paid media publications is very important to mention, because the tobacco industry is always trying to use the media in a way to discredit the policy champions, members of the parliament, the civil society, and anyone who would speak publicly to support the comprehensive changes to the tobacco control legislation in Ukraine. So we did for more than 1 year, we're in the process of revising the bill, discussing again, and unfortunately there were some amendments that weakened the current bill, but at the same time we did pass the first reading with very strong measures that include expanding smoke-free legislation to all enclosed public places, advertising and marketing restrictions, on expanding protection from tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship by banning advertising at the points of sale of all tobacco and nicotine products. So this also means that novel tobacco products, their advertising and promotion and sponsorship would be banned. And flavoring ban would apply not just to cigarettes and tobacco products, but also to electronic cigarettes. So there were some compromises made, but at the same time, the Health Committee that is currently championing the bill, they managed to get the support from the majority of the parliament. 339 members of the parliament voted for this bill. And it wouldn't be possible without also support from the office of the president, who also supported the tax increase. At the same time, I would like to recommend to other countries always to be persistent. In our case, we know that it might take long time to convince the decision makers and find the right champions, because to work on tobacco control, it can be very challenging. We work against a very powerful industry that is very much united in their effort to keep things as it is, because they are not interested in any regulations whatsoever. But forming a coalition from the civil society, policy champions, and also finding honest media who are willing to report on the tobacco industry wrongdoing and interference. There were so many cases that we were able to show to other decision makers to convince them to vote for the comprehensive solutions and not for some single provisions that the tobacco industry was forcing for, again, to mislead everyone and, you know, to create this chaos that the decision makers cannot understand what is wrong and what is right. So to be persistent and patient at the same time, because again, it might take a long time, but stay true to the cause.
Thank you so much, Lilia. I think I personally resonate a lot with you, because Romania is one of the EU countries with similar challenges to the ones that you have just outlined, but also similar opportunities in a way. I also see a question on Romania on Romania tax from the attendees. I will try to give the floor and accommodate as many of the questions that we get to different panelists. So I will separately reply to that one as well. I would like now to get back a bit to Ms. Emmerling on the EU context. And I was looking before we started this panel discussion to the last Tobacco Industry Interference Index. And if I'm counting correctly, I think at least 6 out of the EU countries are placed within the very reddish area of the Tobacco Industry Interference Index, not to count the others that are rather in the mid scale. I think this gives to us a bit of an understanding of the level of and the strengths of the tobacco industry interference at EU level in EU countries. But I think that in the context of the major EU tobacco legislation under review as part of the EU Cancer Plan, such as the Tobacco Tax Directive or the Tobacco Products Directive, where do you see the greatest risks from tobacco industry interference? Specifically, how is the European Commission preparing to withstand the industry pressures? I know you have experience from the past as well, but probably the current context is raising even additional challenges. So please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, we all know that the present Tobacco Products Directive was the most lobbied piece of EU legislation that was passed through the legislative procedure. It shows 2 things. One is we must have a very good and sound and independent database to defend what we are proposing. And I think here academia and the NGOs, the Health Voice has a good role to play to help us with bringing independent data together. So a sound database is key for a successful bringing through the process of a legislative piece. The second is we see tobacco interference not just at the Commission level, we see it at the whole legislative process in the EU. And Commission makes the proposals, the European Parliament and the Council are the co-legislators. So they all have readings of this piece of legislation, and industry interference happens at all levels of this process. So when we are now currently looking at the Commission and its preparation, then it is because we prepare the proposals. We are the first in the line. What are we doing? Now, the cancer plan that I related to in my last intervention has explicitly put Article 5.3 and transparency into the horizon for the Commission, for the other institutions, for the member states. There is an explicit reference in the Cancer Action Plan to look at it, to remind that we are bound by it, to remind of transparency rules. So this is extremely important, and it shows that we have a forward-looking attitude to it. There is also, at the level of the three institutions at EU level, Commission, Parliament and Council, an interinstitutional agreement on a mandatory transparency register. It was agreed in December last year. It's not yet completely signed by everybody, but this mandatory transparency register is a huge step forward, because transparency is key to show who is acting. And it is not just that the tobacco industry itself is there, but we have heard of front groups. We know about sponsorship of events, of platforms. We know that grower organizations are being used. We know that party groups are being sponsored. So this is something one needs to look at. The Ombudsman, and that's my last point, has recently asked a similar question to the Commission. And we've answered, yes, it is in the Cancer Action Plan. We are aware of it. Last summer, we sent around internal notes to all services of the Commission and to all cabinets, reminding of that clear commitment of 5.3 and what it implies for them. And we've also strengthened provisions to prevent revolving doors. And among others, we still have our usual normal transparency policy. DG Sante publishes all minutes of meetings with the tobacco industry on a website. Others are following suit. So I think we are better prepared than last time.
Thank you so much. This is very helpful, and I think you have very well transitioned us towards the next topic of discussion, which is the way the tobacco industry has taken advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic to undermine the government efforts in order to hook new users and push new products. And specifically during the COVID-19 context, we've seen attempts for providing aids and donations to the governments across the globe, which I think were faced with a huge ethical dilemma and moral dilemma in such a context. I've seen such an example also in Romania, with an attempt from a tobacco company to donate much needed equipment to cope with the COVID-19 context, and the difficulty that we had in making sure that this precedent of a donation in such a context would be preempted. Because I know there has been a lot of work and engagement into exposing tobacco industry practices in this regard, I would kindly ask Professor Gilmore at the University of Bath to give us some perspective on what happened in different countries in the COVID-19 context with the tobacco industry attempts for positioning and repositioning itself as a good corporate citizen in difficult times.
I'm muted, sorry. I've got building work going on, so I keep having to mute. what I want to say really is that the tobacco industry actually has a limited toolbox of tricks and tactics that it uses. So really, it is relatively easy for us. And as Taya said, the last Tobacco Products Directive was the most lobbied dossier, and still the revised directive got through. So, you know, this is actually reasonably straightforward, and it's brilliant to hear all the changes that have been made that will really help address the problems that were identified in the last TPD. And whether it's COVID or another tobacco control policy, you know, the toolbox is the same. And when we're talking about the donations, that really is the industry's #1 tactic now. This is about normalizing the tobacco industry. Because of its appalling history, the tobacco industry is increasingly denormalized, and it has to therefore spend vast amounts of money normalizing itself. And so one of the key things we have to do is continuously denormalize the tobacco industry. And I think what we've tended to do is do that really at national level, but we actually need to look kind of globally. These are global industries, and increasingly they're using global platforms and global media houses. You know, Lilia has mentioned the use of the media, but we're seeing that they're working with The Economist, you know, with the Financial Times, with foreign policy. That's an issue we need to address. They're appearing on global platforms, really often hidden. So we have to increasingly denormalize the industry. Another key tactic is coalition management. So they're funding third parties and front groups, again, as Taya mentioned. If we look at the last Tobacco Products Directive, in our research, we identified 137 organizations opposing the Tobacco Products Directive. And, you know, a large number of those can be linked to the industry, but it's incredibly burdensome for us to have to trace that all through. So that burden needs to be placed on the industry. Any organization that's participating in a debate needs to give a full disclosure, not just of conflicts of interest, but of all funding. So we need to place that onus and that requirement on the industry and on the organizations participating, that they must fully disclose before they can participate. And Taya mentioned, you know, databases. I think we need to move towards these, you know, databases of organizations that are appearing in policy debates, but also on the research front. So the other key area that they work in is information. So this is their kind of information strategy, if you like, but really it's a kind of misinformation and disinformation strategy. And increasingly what we're seeing is the tobacco industry is controlling so much data. Look at tobacco smuggling. Nearly all of the data now is controlled by the tobacco industry. Look at research coming out on COVID. They've had, you know, a link to some of the publications coming out there. Look at new emerging tobacco products. Nearly all of the research on heated tobacco products is coming from the tobacco industry, which has such an appalling history of scientific misconduct that it's very hard to trust that research. So really we need to move towards a new model. And I think what we need is a tax on these corporations to fund research and data and to fund tobacco control. Because in that way, we both directly address the industry tactics, we can have independent data and evidence that we can therefore trust. And by funding tobacco control, we can fund efforts to oppose those industry actions. So those are just some ideas of the kind of, for the 3 of the key industry tactics. That the other direct tactic is direct influence, but over time, as they become denormalized, they have to move away from that, which is why we see more and more front groups and third parties. So that's a kind of brief summary of some things that I think we could do.
I think this is very useful, and I think the fact that we are, in a way, jumping to tools and solutions, both valid globally, but also at the local level, is very useful for all the attendees that are faced with because I think we are very globalized in this tobacco control fight across the globe, as we all face the same challenges, and in the same time, a lot of the tools that are applicable in some countries are also applicable in some others. So I think it's always very useful to stay close and share and exchange as much of the good practices that we can. That's why I'm giving, although we are, as I said, a bit behind the schedule, I would not like to exclude Lilia's from the answer on these specific questions, because I would like her to still give us some tools that maybe were used with success in Ukraine. In the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, when we are talking about sponsorships and donations attempts from the tobacco industry.
Thank you, Ramona. So yeah, we did manage, when it all started, we did manage to work quickly and ASAP. I guess the timing is always crucial, you know, when we want to counter some of the industry efforts, even the efforts that are not understood by the general public and even by many decision makers as the efforts to only undermine tobacco control, giving donations to support doctors and hospitals during the COVID pandemic was also exercised in Ukraine. And in our case, we did manage to inform the Ministry of Health, because the PMI had, they reach out directly to the Ministry of Health offering these funds, but we were able to just to remind about Article 5.3, and the Ministry of Health did not accept these funds. But also, I just would like to highlight that we always should be ready for any interference. Recently, we discovered that in Ukraine we have an organization that just received funds from Smoke Free Foundation, and one of their main purposes is to use novel products to open the doors of academic institutions, to fund the research, and, as they say, to support smokers and help them to quit. And in terms of Ukraine, when we don't have a quit line or any proper support for smokers, it is very damaging and very challenging when the tobacco industry positions itself as someone who can provide help and support, and saying that the novel products is a solution. So for countries that are, you know, that have limited resources and that don't have a proper way to help smokers to quit, the industry will most likely use this way to open the doors that were closed before and to get the publicity that they want. But at the same time, again, we shouldn't forget about the friendly journalists and friendly media. In our case, we partnered with several investigative journalists and were able to publicize and highlight all of the industry efforts, how they try to use the pandemic to just to have their reputation clean from all of the deaths that they cause. So just to always stay alerted and always inform other partners, and especially journalists, because again, there are just few of us, but if we can have journalists and media on our side, the bloggers, influencers, the social media now provide so many tools to have more or less direct communication with decision makers. So we should stay up to date with the modern solutions, because even you know, informing decision makers through Facebook, at least in our case, can be very effective too.
Thank you very much for the suggestion, Lilia. Very good insights into what worked in Ukraine. I think it's especially valid as we have a group of journalists from Bulgaria attending this session. So I think it would be very useful for them to hear your thoughts on what worked in Ukraine, and hopefully to get them on board on this complex fight with tobacco. You've mentioned at one point during the last intervention that you had about the new tobacco products and the way the tobacco industry is trying to re-normalize itself in the front of the public in general. There is indeed a lot of talk of transformation and responsibility from the tobacco industry, even though we all know that there is very little evidence very little independent evidence to support this. I think this was even pushed further to a greater extent during the COVID-19, because they in a way took advantage of the whole focus on public health to drive this communication point further. I would like to bring the challenge to the question to each of you individually, with the question on how can we as a tobacco control community push back up against this transformation narrative. Is there anything that we can do in terms of capacity to monitor and expose and fight back against the tobacco products and companies? Or are there any examples at global level that we get inspiration from? I think we start hearing some examples even in today's discussion, but it would be good to have a broader perspective on whether there is anything elsewhere that we can get inspiration from. I would first give the floor to Tamerling with these two questions. if you can unmute your phone, your speaker, microphone.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
With the transformation narrative, you mean the switch from traditional tobacco products to new products?
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. We have tackled this already in the FCTC. At the last COP, the EU, but also joined by the European region countries and by many other countries, we put forward a decision on tackling emerging tobacco products and to make clear that these new products are also tobacco products and that they fall under the FCTC with all the provisions that the FCTC had. This was a very important step that we made clear that everything that contains tobacco falls under the FCTC. And it was also a very nice thing that reunited all of WHO Euro region behind that goal. So I would say modern tobacco control policy will have to look at all of these products. And it will be quite challenging because not all of the emerging products are tobacco products, because there are also nicotine products and there are nicotine-free vapors and there are lots of different products on the market. And I think we need to be vigilant. We need to exchange experience on them. We need to see how they are regulated in different jurisdictions, because so far many of them are unregulated. And so the modern tobacco control policy will be on these products and how we respond to these products. But in any case, whatever product that is, it's most of the time addictive. If it contains nicotine, nicotine is still a toxic and poisonous substance. So these are not harmless products that we are talking about in the transformation narrative. And we have, by the way, in our Tobacco Products Directive, one nice warning. It's very short, and I would like to end with this from my side. Smoking kills. Quit now. Out of it. Quit.
Thank you so much. I think that I'm personally very encouraged as an EU member country by the focus that we see from the EU Commission on closing the gaps on tobacco control regulations in general. So I think there is a lot of work ahead of us, but definitely a lot of highly important and impactful work as well. So thank you very much for your commitment to work on this, and you have the full support from the at least from the NGOs groups in each of the EU countries for this. I would now address the same question on this transformational and responsible narrative coming from the tobacco industry at even a strengthened pace than ever before to Professor Gilmore and her thoughts on this topic as well.
Okay, so there's a few points to make here. I think really, as you said, this is an entirely false narrative. If you look at this from a business perspective, if they're really just about switching smokers to these new products, there would be no long-term business for them. So it makes absolutely no sense. And all the evidence suggests that this narrative is entirely false. They're both trying to maximize the tobacco epidemic and create a new epidemic of new products. But I think whenever things seem messy, and it does seem messy in this area, we have to simplify. And I think one of the simplest things to remember here is we need to reclaim harm reduction. Harm reduction is a public health concept. We've used it in tobacco control for decades, but it's being misused here. So harm reduction really is about reducing the harm from tobacco at individual level, but also at community and population level. And the industry is misusing it because really what they're doing is focusing just at the individual level. So I think we need to, reclaim that ground and be clear about the definitions that we're using. I think also we've talked about some end games here, things like the tobacco-free generation can be a nicotine-free generation. We can use some of these concepts actually to really improve the whole spectrum. And you also raised a question around capacity building in order to kind of address industry interference and kind of resources. So as part of the STOP project, we do a lot of monitoring of the tobacco industry. We have our Tobacco Tactics website and the Exposed Tobacco website. And so Tobacco Tactics tries to keep up to date with new industry front groups and tactics. And everyone can access that. And then there are a lot of resources on the STOP website. Also, in terms of capacity and support, we have this global monitoring network, which we run out of the University of Bath as part of STOP. And so that's really where people can exchange information and build a kind of a network that's monitoring and trying to address industry interference. And we also run some courses where we try and build capacity in tobacco industry monitoring, research and accountability. So those are ways in which we're trying to help build capacity also.
I guess it's really encouraging to hear this, because I think that I personally feel more than ever that during a challenging time, the tobacco control community has grouped together even stronger than before. So I think, to me, this is a very good signal for the work that comes ahead of us. Even in such a difficult time, but probably specifically the challenging times are bringing the best in us, as I said in the beginning. So hopefully we're going to see that translated in a lot of actions and decisive actions that we can facilitate and encourage across the globe. I've seen earlier on, and I would not like to get this past, a hand raised by Mrs. Khalturina in Russia. So if she has anything else to add at this point in the discussion, I'm very much encouraging her.
Yeah. I think this pandemic created a good momentum for banning various hookahs, because it is quite an obvious way for transferring various respiratory diseases. In Russia, tobacco hookah were banned back in 2013, but the industry invented nicotine hookahs, which were still up there. There are some, heating stones, whatever. So this year we used pandemics as another reason to ban hookah smoking. Unfortunately, not 100% of hookah houses are closed, but from January 2021, generally it is illegal, and I think it's a really good momentum to ban hookahs.
Thank you so much for adding this, because I think it's. I think we all need this encouragement and motivational element into our daily work and struggle on tobacco control. So as many good examples as we can find across, they are also very, very welcome and encouraging. I think the discussion that we had today, without being as lengthy as we would have wanted, and having so much expertise in the discussion with us, always allows for a lot of exchanges of good practices and thoughts and interesting ideas. I think what came across very clearly is that achieving a tobacco-free generation objective might seem ambitious in each country that we are working in, but on the other hand, there is such a good level of support that academia can provide through the research, that the NGOs can provide in terms of their experiences and of tools that were used and worked successfully on the ground. So I think the policymakers have a lot of expertise available already to them in order to achieve this objective. And I know that there is a lot of good effort into going into this in each of the countries across Europe and across the globe. So I don't think that any longer we need to explain the tobacco-free objective as being unrealistic to a lot of the governments across the world, but some of them do see the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is really encouraging. So I think that I would like all of us to leave this panel of discussion with a lot of hope into our collective ability to move things forward if we continue to stay close together and learn from each other, and use the best of our expertise and the knowledge and the experience to drive this common fight towards the envisioned objective of a tobacco-free future generation. So thank you very much to all the panelists for this discussion. I sincerely hope that we're going to have the opportunity to see you again in this kind of webinar format, and learn from you across the way. So wishing you all a very good day onward, and hope to see you again soon, healthy and happy with the results of the work that you are doing individually. Anka, now the floor is yours.
I am just going to take the microphone for the pleasure of reintroducing Dr. Borges, who will take us through the WHO World No Tobacco Awards from today and from this year and recognize the winners.
Thank you. Thank you, Anka. And it's really a pleasure, I said in the beginning, to be here. And I feel very privileged. I think, as it was mentioned, it's very clear that we are here with a single purpose. And with that, I would like to say that it's really a pleasure to introduce today the World No Tobacco Day awardees, who were carefully selected and are praised today in the recognition of the long-term commitment that they have done and the outstanding contribution to the advancement of the measures and policies which are contained in the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, particularly in those related to the theme of the World No Tobacco Day. So in this year of our awardee has been granted by the WHO Regional Director General Special Recognition Award. And this is the Tobacco Control Research Group at the University of Bath in the United Kingdom. The Tobacco Control Research Group has worked relentlessly to expose tobacco industry attempts and tactics to weaken, block, and delay tobacco control, thereby helping to secure policy changes at national and international levels. We've heard quite a lot of this today in the discussions. For over 10 years, Tobacco Control Research Group has worked to expose these tactics. It provides academically rigorous, accessible, and policy-relevant research to those who need it.
Тези, които се нуждаят от това,
so I'm having a problem with it.
Биха могли определено.
So I will continue. For 10 years, the Tobacco Control Research Group has been working to expose the industry attempts to weaken and block and delay tobacco control measures. The research group provides academically rigorous, accessible, and policy-relevant research to those in need, and does it through the innovative knowledge exchange platform, Tobacco Tactics. Tobacco Control Research Group is part of the Stopping Tobacco Organizations and Products, STOP, a global tobacco industry watchdog. Through its capacity building work, including briefings, it supports the global efforts to hold the industry to account and reduce its interference in tobacco control activities. The research data has also been contributing to a variety of policy changes. These range from the introduction of plain packaging in the United Kingdom to the development of the European Union Tobacco Products Directive, to stronger worldwide implementation of the Article 5.3 of the WHO Convention on Tobacco Control. Herewith, I would like to invite Professor Anna Gilmore, the Director of the Tobacco Control Research Group at the University of Bath, to receive this award. Professor Gilmore, I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karina, and to the WHO and to Dr. Tedros for this award, which I don't know if you can see it. I've got it there so everyone can see. I want to stress that this is not an award to me. This is an award to the whole wonderful and talented tobacco control research team, some of whom you can see on the screen behind me. You've probably been wondering why I've got such a funny screen background, but that's why, because it's really to recognize that, everybody there. We're of course humbled and honored and absolutely delighted to receive this special recognition. But I always say in tobacco control, and we've really heard that on the webinar today, that nothing is achieved in isolation. It's only through working in partnership and collaboration with all of you in tobacco control that we have impacts. And I therefore want to thank all of you for working with us over the many years in which we've been working together, and for making this so much more pleasurable than it would be otherwise. Some of you, in fact, that we've worked with nominated us. And so a really special thanks goes to the Smoke-Free Partnership, the European Respiratory Society, and the World Heart Federation, among many others. Working in this area can be difficult, and it's really important that we support each other. And in that respect, I also want to thank the University of Bath for being so supportive of us, and our funders, who sometimes have had to really step up to the plate in funding this work, and for making it all possible. So in short, a massive thank you to WHO and to all of you from the Tobacco Control Research Group at the University of Bath. And we look forward to continuing to work with you to bring an end to the tobacco epidemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you. And again, once again, congratulations for this, for getting this WHO Director General Special Recognition Award. We're very happy with that, and we've known, your efforts are well known and have been, as I said, critical and crucial to do some of the most important policy changes. So thank you very much for that. So now I will move to the next awardee, and it will be the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation, who has made also an outstanding effort to strengthen national tobacco control legislation. In 2013, the Russian Federation adopted one of the most comprehensive anti-tobacco laws in the world. This approach to tobacco control has helped the government reduce the number of smokers by 21% and also reduce the tobacco sales by almost 30% in just 7 years, from 2009 to 2016. In July 2020, the Ministry of Health put forward to the federal parliament an amendment of the tobacco control law, broadening its scope to regulate not only tobacco, but also nicotine-containing and heated tobacco products. We heard already this. And we have, in 2021, the Russian Federation has also achieved a 20% increase in excise taxes on cigarettes and other nicotine-containing products. So again, a landmark, a major milestone. Furthermore, over recent years, the Ministry of Health has increased its provision of the population-level approaches to peak tobacco use, such as introducing brief interventions at primary healthcare level, which is an important landmark. It has also supported the establishment of specialized cessation services. Therefore, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Daria Kalturina to be the one receiving the award on behalf of the Ministry of Health of the Russian Federation. Daria?
Thank you very much, Karina.
The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. It is indeed a great honor and pleasure. And indeed, a lot of work was done. And I hope that this award will stimulate our leadership to support the efforts of Ministry of Health and advocates of tobacco control even more. I would like to thank, first of all, World Health Organization, because its support was crucial, or persistent and almost timely, starting from research, providing information, organizing all these events where we could exchange our experience. But also I would like to thank everybody in this room, because just like Anna said, it is not being done by the country alone. We all speak to advocates, to ministries of health, to officials from other countries, officials from the World Health Organization, to researchers, to understand how to proceed with this complete task. So I think, again, thank you very much for everyone for supporting each other here, and for World Health Organization for supporting the parties and tobacco control globally.
Thank you, Daria. It's been a pleasure to see all these changes also in the Russian Federation. And And as I mentioned, living in Moscow, I think I'm very also privileged because my children are in a way in a country where there's quite a lot of protection in terms of, seeing and being exposed to many of those, I would say, the tobacco advertisements and a lot of the exposure that you get also from other settings. So I would like now to move and thank you. I really welcome these efforts, and I know that this is a priority for the Russian Federation. So I'm very happy to see the efforts and the movements made through as you presented today. So another award is now going to Dr. Musref Pervin Tuba Durgut, Vice President of the Health, Family, Labor and Social Affairs Commission of the Grand National Assembly, Turkey. Dr. Durgut is a leading voice for the tobacco control in Turkey. Sorry? Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Dr. Durgut is a leading voice for tobacco control in Turkey and has been influential in the passage of strong national tobacco control measures in 2019. This including the increase in tobacco taxation, the adaptation of the plain packaging, despite of the aggressive also opposition from the tobacco industry that we see in many countries. Moreover, Dr. Durgut was instrumental in securing the first government-funded anti-industry campaign in Turkey. There again, our loss. And this campaign was ran in 160 television and 50 radio stations and ranked second in the YAPSO survey in the most admired campaigns in 2019. Dr. Durgut also established a web platform focused on monitoring the tactics of the tobacco industry with regards to children and youth, as well as on increasing compliance with the smoking ban in indoor areas and the implementation of other relevant tobacco control measures. So I hope that I have pronounced well the name. My apologies if I did not. So I would like to give you the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You perfectly pronunciated my name. I know it is very long and very hard. For your kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone that participated in the nomination and award process. While being nominated for recognition is its own reward, to have been chosen a winner from among my peers is truly humbling. I would also like to congratulate my fellow awardees and thank them for their part in this.
We are losing you.
I wish COVID-19 killed 4 million. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, okay. Now it's better, yes.
Okay. COVID-19 killed 4 million people in the last 18 months, whereas tobacco kills 8 million people per year. I say this not to diminish the urgency of the COVID pandemic, but rather to emphasize the urgency of the tobacco epidemic. In Hungary alone, 120,000 people die every year due to smoking. The World Health Organization owed our gratitude for its leadership, and I want to thank the anti-tobacco community as a whole. The sense of camaraderie born from international cooperation strengthens our hope for the future of humanity. I look forward to working with colleagues throughout the world in this fight for the health of humanity, and thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Durgut, for your inspirational statements. Your diligence, your self-motivation, as well as your dedication is a source of inspiration for other parties. So thank you again, and thank you for the efforts in this area of tobacco control. So our next awardee is Mr. Cornel Radu Logging, a tobacco control advocate who originally initiated and currently coordinates the ENSP tobacco dependence treatment guidelines, first published in 2011, and the online training platform Accredited Curriculum on Tobacco Treatment. This program trains healthcare professionals in Europe in the latest evidence-based practices for helping patients to quit smoking. I would also like to mention that once a week, that 1 week ago, DG Santé has recognized the training program as a best practice. So Mr. Radu Login has also been instrumental in expanding the ENSP network to Eastern European countries, including to Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, the Republic of Moldova, Russian Federation, Turkey, and Ukraine, to provide activists with constant professional support. More recently, Mr. Radu Login launched the Ending Tobacco Epidemic, an essential step for beating cancer, an initiative to highlight the importance of tobacco control in all aspects of cancer care. Mr. Radu Login, congratulations. I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Borges, and thank you all for attending the event today, and thank you to all awardees, because always tobacco control, it's a teamwork, and I'm very happy that this year was my turn. In 2011, we succeeded to receive this award with the network, with ENSP. Also was very important for us because 2011 was a very complicated year for ENSP. We had lack of funds in that year. Then we started to build the tobacco dependence treatment guidelines. In fact, we tried to implement WHO FCTC Article 14 in Europe. And as you mentioned, and as you can see, in 10 years, we really succeeded to create an example of good practice in this field in Europe. I will not finish before thanking to all my Romanian colleagues. I worked there for 15 years in tobacco control, and finally, after so many years, we can see very good results also in Romania. And I'm looking forward to let's say, maybe in 10 years to have another award, or maybe earlier for ENSP or for our members. Thank you very much and have an excellent day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Radu Login. Thank you once again. Congratulations with the World No Tobacco Day Award. Thank you. The next award goes to the German Network for Tobacco-Free Hospitals and Healthcare Services. The German network has made an important and well-recognized contribution to the tobacco prevention in Germany. The work started with a model project funded by the Ministry of Health, which in 2005 aimed to establish as many hospitals as possible as smoke-free institutions. Since that time, they have supported about 120 German hospitals and healthcare services to implement international smoke-free standards. So now the patients are supported in their willingness to quit smoking through a direct referral to an evidence-based cessation consultation while they are still in the hospital. So the German Network for Tobacco-Free Hospitals and Healthcare Services was instrumental in the development of a program to reduce tobacco use among nursing students and to integrate training in brief interventions as a standard part of the nursing education. Mrs. Krista Russler, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words. And I would like to hand over the word first to the chair of the board of the network, to Johannes Lindenmaier. So please, Johannes Lindenmaier.
Yeah, thank you very much. I thank all for this award, which is a great encouragement for us, because our environment in Germany for tobacco prevention and tobacco control is not easy, as you all know. We just delivered the red flag to the Ministry of Health today, where we were given the award to remind them that Germany is far behind. I agree on everything that was said today on tobacco control policy and what we have to do, but we also must remember that there are smokers still alive, and for them it is difficult to stop smoking because smoking is highly addictive. And so we thought that being in a hospital is a teachable moment to reach smokers, because their life is shattered by being in the hospital. They are in contact with healthcare workers, and this is an ideal moment to reach them to stop smoking. And if you want to do this, you also have to make sure that the staff of hospitals are smoke-free, because otherwise it does not work. And those were the two projects we tried to do to make hospitals smoke-free, to offer patients smoking cessation, and to get the staff of hospitals smoke-free.
Please let me add some words to the work we had done the last 16 years. And first of all, I would like to thank Martina Pötschke-Lange and Karin Fitztum, who nominated us for this award. And thank you very much to the WHO and to the people who really supported this award for the German network. Because for us, it's a great pleasure, a great honor, but also it is a mission to work towards a tobacco-free Germany. And I always would like to say it's wonderful that networks are awarded this year, because networks are wonderful places to gather good practice, to share good practice, and to build capacity and support single organizations, because, as you said, we need to be persistent and we need to be patient. And I would like to thank all my network partners and network organizations and schools, because without them we would not be here, and they are doing a great job and they are pioneers in Germany. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chrisel Rassat. And it's great to see that as a result of the active contribution that you have been doing, we see more and more German hospitals and healthcare services implementing these smoke-free standards. And we also appreciate your role in advocating the elimination of the tobacco industry interference in the healthcare societies and networks. So I would just like to say to Mr. Lindenmaier that I fully agree with what he mentioned. I have an addiction background, and I had the opportunity also to be able to support many teams treating people with addiction problems, also wanting to stop smoking, and some of them, coming to me with already, cancer, lung cancer, asking, because they were addicts, they still, in recovery, they still wanted to at least end their lives in, safe from tobacco, so not smoking. So I saw those efforts, and I know how difficult this can be. And again, thank you for all the support in making sure that those who are smoking can have also the chance, the possibility to find the response to be able to quit smoking. And we know how difficult this can be. So thank you very much. The next award is the Tobacco Control Unit in the Catalan Institute of Oncology. The Tobacco Control Unit was created in 2000 as part of the Catalan Institute of Oncology. The unit gained the visibility and recognition through the performed research and its participation and coordination of international networks. Developed by the Tobacco Control Unit's tools and online learning programs, these are used to train European health science students in offering smoking cessation help, and to improve the knowledge and the attitudes and the behaviors of the Spanish health professionals related to quitting smoking. Tobacco Control Unit is also responsible for initiatives such as the Catalan Smoke-Free Hospital Network and the health promotion services, including support to employees and patients of the Catalan Institute of Oncology to quit smoking. So I would like to invite now Dr. Esteve Fernandez for a short statement. Mr. Dr. Esteves, the floor is yours. Esteve, I would say.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I thank you very much, WHO and all the tobacco control community for this award. And also congratulations to all awardees too. We, in fact, are still surprised by the recognition award. And however, we are very, very happy and proud of receiving such an important award. I believe that this is a recognition to the Tobacco Control Unit trajectory during the last 20 years and to all our partners and networks we have created or we have contributed to them. It has been a work of a terrific team at the Catalan Institute of Oncology. This recognition includes not only all these colleagues currently working, but also those who have contributed over these years to tobacco control from the Catalan Institute of Oncology. We will, of course, continue working comprehensively for tobacco control at the local level. This is implementing interventions and research projects, both at the local and the global level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fernandez. And once again, congratulations for this World No Tobacco Day Awards. And now I would like to give the floor back to Mrs. Anka for the closing remarks. Anka?
Thank you. Since we're already a little bit taking everyone's time, and thank you so much for staying on. It was such an amazing discussion, and this event has brought so much positive energy and inspiring examples of people, of organizations. There's not really much to add, but just to say a big congratulations to all the awardees of this year, and a big thank you to the WHO for helping us make this happen today, as you have done for the past several years. And it's a fantastic time, really, to be reminded that one, history is on our side, and that two, we will make this happen. We will get the world rid of tobacco by keeping working with these amazing people and organizations, and working together as a community to make it happen. So with that, many, many thanks to all the attendees, to all the organizers, and to all the awardees for being here with us today. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you for the organizers.